Our next reader is a poet and artist who was born in Chicago. Their work proudly documents Chicago's queer and trans communities. Their writing has been published by Chicago Artist Writers, Lambda Literary, and Them, the first trans literary journal in the United States. It is also forthcoming in the anthology Writing the Walls Down by Transgenre Press. They are the author of Survival in the Second City, Trans Queer Poems, and currently work at the Poetry Foundation. Please welcome H. Melt. Hi. A little down? Okay. Perfect. Awesome.
So, hey everyone, my name is H. Melt. I am a poet journalist, a writer here in Chicago. I write a lot primarily about Chicago itself and its kind of queer and trans art scene. Like Andrew said, I have a book out called Survival in the Second City. You can find it on Haymarket Books website. And tonight I'm going to read one short essay and then a poem. So this is the essay, and it's called The Loss of Queer Space, Parler and Clark, and it begins with a quote. Nikki and I took a rundown tavern in an area of the city that we loved and turned it into a space that would provide a home for artists, musicians, comedians, drag queens, and many amazing dance parties. Jennifer Murphy, co-owner of Parler on Clark. The first time I went to Parler on Clark was after my first Dyke March in 2012. It was one of the first queer parties I ever attended. I arrived early for an ice cream social, and soon after, the bar filled wall to wall with queer people. I could barely move. I hardly knew anyone there, but it didn't matter. My body surrendered to the motions of the swaying crowd. Sometime around midnight, the cops showed up to a gay bar full of people commemorating Stonewall. The bar was overcrowded and the police encouraged everyone to go home, as if we weren't already there. After 4 years in business, Parler on Clark is closed. Their last day in business was on Sunday, August 10th, 2014. Owners Nikki Calhoun and Jennifer Murphy wanted to sell the bar. However, they couldn't transfer their liquor license due to a moratorium the city refused to lift. In an email sent to Parler's customers, Murphy commented, "We hoped it was going to be around for a while. What we learned was that people were less focused on supporting a local business and more interested in finding the newest bar, event, club, restaurant, or party." Parler was an important space in Chicago's queer landscape. It provided a much-needed alternative to the plethora of gay bars that cater exclusively to men. Parler was more inviting than its long-standing neighbors Jackhammer and Touché, creating a welcoming atmosphere for lesbians, queer artists, and trans people. It was a hip neighborhood bar located near the border of Rogers Park and Edgewater, two neighborhoods with significant queer and trans populations. It was the type of place you'd take a friend from out of town, a place where you met your wife, a place where you went to dance, catch a performance, or to relax on the round white leather couch in back. The loss of queer space is nothing new. We're a community familiar with loss, perhaps even defined by it. I've noticed several queer spaces in Chicago that have disappeared after an average lifespan of 2 to 3 years. Many queer events, especially dance parties, occur on a monthly basis in otherwise straight spaces. What does it mean that so many queer events take place in straight spaces? If our spaces are temporary, does that mean we are temporary too? The closing of Parlor on Clark proves that loving a community is not enough. Love needs to be sustainable. The queer community needs to do a better job supporting spaces and people when they are struggling. We need to create a culture where we can ask for help and receive it. Otherwise, we will continue to be defined by loss. So one thing that I often do is when I write about either a place or a person that I frequent, like Parlor on Clark, like Big Chicks, what I usually do is actually share that piece of writing with the place or the people that I'm writing about. And so right after Parlor closed, I sent that essay to the owners, and they were incredibly receptive and loving and shared stories about the bar with me, and that was really rewarding to have them actually respond to what I was writing and just also to reach out and send it to them too. So I'm going to read a poem. I'm also a poet in addition to an essayist, and this is called What the Queer Wants. The queer wants to talk with you. The queer wants to be recognized as real. The queer wants privacy in public space. The queer wants to stare back at the straight gaze. The queer wants to be invisible. The queer wants to marry no one. The queer wants to eat your blonde-haired, blue-eyed baby for breakfast. The queer wants to rain on the pride parade, cleanse the crowd of corporate cooperation. The queer wants to work outside cubicle confines. The queer wants to close every prison and throw away the key. The queer wants to pee in peace, desegregate bathrooms again. The queer wants to scare TSA terrorists randomly searching their junk for Burroughs' ashes. The queer wants to donate blood stains to the carpet of the Red Cross. The queer wants to shoot themselves with hormones the neighbors don't want to hear. The queer wants freedom to fist America's anus. The queer wants sex without sexuality, with consent and protection. The queer wants to come in more colors than white. The queer wants to come out of the cemetery. Jane Addams, James Baldwin, Michelle Foucault, Allen Ginsberg, Keith Haring, Langston Hughes, Marsha P. Johnson, Frida Kahlo, Audre Lorde, Frank O'Hara, Sylvia Rivera, Bayard Rustin, we miss you. The queer wants a history, a herstory, a their story to share. The queer wants a free museum in DC, San Fran, NY, Hotlanta, Chi-City, Tulsa, and Mobile. The queer wants a national holiday the government hates to observe. The queer wants to defecate on the census and send it back. The queer wants to be different is dangerous. The queer wants to live, survive the train ride home. The queer wants to catch their breath, take a break from explaining their existence.